Yep.
Go. Uh, Welcome everyone to the Service Committee meeting, City of Bellbrook. And at this point, we'll start our meeting. Um, Tonight, we're going to discuss some downtown improvements with sidewalks. And it's one of the city goals. It'll be improvements for walkability and also I'll mention it's probably going to improve safety because we have some areas that you got to be careful. So um, the city, as we know, is so a lot of this stuff was surveyed in 1840s for horses and mules and pedestrians, and not too much for cars. So Melissa's done a good job with getting some of this stuff marked and what we need to do. And I'll turn it over to Melissa. Thank you.
Okay, so we're kind of the packet that I had put together for discussion has the walkability stuff first and the Little Sugar Creek second, even though the agenda is flipped. So I just actually noticed that just a few minutes ago. So everybody has already seen this information. It was all disseminated via email several weeks ago, I believe. So everybody's had the chance to look at this, and we're just going to talk about it just so that I can get an idea as to what you all are supportive of in terms of next steps. So the proposal is for the walkability issue has been provided by LJB, who is our civil engineer that we use. Since we do not have one on staff, we utilize a local firm, and Dan Hoying is our engineer that we use, and he's done an amazing job for us. He held my hand all through the North Bellevue situation. He took care of the Northwest Street sidewalk addition that we got with the CDBG grant. And he's also, one of his strong suits is also helping to identify funding sources and grants. A lot of that stuff comes to his firm and to him specifically, and he is able to share that kind of stuff and help provide the information needed to apply for grants as well. So the thought behind the proposal that is in front of everybody is our comprehensive plan has specifically outlined the need for some crosswalk and sidewalk enhancements. And I have also found a few others just in getting out and walking around. I think I've told Forrest this. Over the summer, I would be seen walking all the time downtown. I would take my phone calls, I would get out and I would walk. And you know, a lot of this stuff really becomes obvious as to how important having good sidewalks and solid sidewalk connections and crosswalks are. We have very few crosswalks in our downtown, and there is not a single one on Main Street, north or south, with the exception of the main intersection, which to me blows my mind because we've got so many kids coming down from the school into the downtown to go to the dairy shed, and just residents in general walking. So it's really important that we identify these areas and try to come up with a plan. So that's what we have is a proposal to take a look at the areas that have been identified and to put together a cost estimate and some preliminary engineering related to those various areas of sidewalk additions and crosswalks. And once I have that information, I can go out and apply for grants. I can't just say, you know, for a grant that I would like to do these things and I think it's going to cost this. They really want to see firm figures and engineers' estimates. So the proposal that's in front of everybody is for that work to be done so that I know how much these things are going to cost and I can go out for grants for these things. So the proposal is $12,950, and there are 7 different project areas. One of the project areas, which actually falls under a different committee. I think it's community affairs. Some of these goals kind of, maybe it is service. I can't remember now. One of the city goals was to upgrade the light, the signal, and the traffic light, just the traffic light. I don't know what I'm trying to spit out here, but at Main and Franklin. Dan Hoying said, our engineer said that there is a safety grant that we could get for that. So that specific signal was a specific goal as it related to the city goals. I just can't remember where it fell under. I don't have the whole list of goals in front of me right now. So this proposal is kind of killing a few birds with one stone, so to speak. But really, I just want to do this to position ourselves for grants. And then we also know what these things are going to cost if we ever want to earmark the money that I originally wanted to earmark in the 2021 budget to be able to do, which grants are going to require a local match. Usually almost all of them do. So we would end up being responsible for at least a portion. So thoughts on the proposal related to walkability, crosswalk, sidewalks, traffic signal upgrade?
Would it also be worth looking at any safety upgrades at the intersection of Franklin and Main? If we're looking at the signal upgrade, are the crosswalks there sufficient? Do we have the handicap accessible? I think we do, but
We do.
I know I thought we also talked about looking at the bump outs, getting those removed, just cleaning up that area as well. I don't know how much added that cost, but if we're going to have it looked at.
Well, and part of this is so many of the things that we talk about are very interconnected. We put out a RFP, which is on our homepage for downtown streetscape design. That's going to be a part of that too.
Okay.
So I don't see a need to specifically call that out in here because it's going to be looked at as part of that RFP.
Okay, cool. All right. I think this looks great. I think the residents would really like this. Especially that sidewalk over along, going up by the golf range, connecting that neighborhood.
So that's a really funny thing. We stumbled across that, literally. This is how most things get figured out, is we trip over them because we're looking at something else. So when the Dollar General and the storage unit went in, they went in the same, well, they were approved the same year. I don't know if they were actually constructed the same year, but they were approved the same year. A condition of approval for the store and lock was that they had to install a sidewalk along the full length of their property, and they never did it. And also promised was that the city would then finish from Franklin to the store and lock, and then from the store and lock to Hess. So I plan to hold fast to that. So that property owner would be responsible for putting in what they should have and never did. And then we would finish the rest of it.
Okay. Is it the same owner?
No.
Okay.
But that is a responsibility of that homeowner to say that this needs to be done. And if that information was not passed along, then that should have been disclosed with the sale. So we have all the documentation in the world that says that should have happened. So
okay.
I've already talked to our municipal attorney about the best way to handle that, because it's probably going to be complicated, but I have faith that we'll be able to get it done. But we were literally looking there was a brush pile that was back behind Ryder Court. Somebody tore down a bunch of trees and piled a brush pile up on top of a bike path. We started looking at ownership, and we started just digging into that property period. And we figured that out. And we were like, oh, wow. It's just one of those things that, it was promised it was handled by Dave Hamilton. Dave Hamilton left. When sometimes you just don't have solid continuity between people, and that's just been one of those things. So this is why we need minutes, because this helps us understand these things.
Yep. Okay, great.
So there was just some interesting history behind that stretch. So
Melissa, that sidewalk behind the store and lock and in between the apartment buildings that connects Ryder Court to Lower
Hess,
Hillside,
oh
is
yeah,
that, who owns that?
it's actually the store and locks.
Is it?
And that was the whole problem. It's actually private property, but we have forever pushed snow and mowed next to it for some reason. So that was really what caused us to kind of look into ownership and why and how things were the way that they were. And that's when we figured out that they were also supposed to put that other piece in and never did.
And I'm sorry, I couldn't understand. Who's the owner, please?
I don't know the individual's name, but it's changed hands a few times since the construction of the property.
Would
Yeah,
that be, oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say quick, Forrest. I think we emailed about this seemingly eons ago, but definitely this project, I think is a definite thumbs up, should be done. Come back to the city with recommendations. And I didn't see anything contentious. I looked through the bid, if you will, and it looked like they were going to do a decent job. So.
So is
I agree. I also agree. I think it's a really, really good endeavor. Like I said, like I brought up, surveyed in 1844 with horses and buggies. And there's been a lot of people that's done some of this stuff on their own and, tried to improve things. The survey thing might be something to just mention or look at while you're doing this, Melissa. Surveys are kind of crazy down here. Things are encroached on this or that. I mean, I don't know if that's an issue moving forward. Then I think
that's
at one
something
time,
that our engineers would sort out.
okay. The other
That's
thing
their
is,
expertise for sure.
right. And then the other thing you mentioned was possibly assigning some of the businesses to redo things or be liable for some of the sidewalks, I think. I don't know.
So I think that that's a step ahead.
Okay.
We are going to do a sidewalk assessment this spring/summer just to kind of see where the status of these things are. But we just have to be really sensitive to the fact that, the pandemic has had a financial hardship on a lot of people, and requiring people to replace sidewalks that's gonna be a sensitive subject that we're really gonna have to just keep at the forefront.
Okay. So what I was getting at is just with the projects that you have noted here, if that is entwined with anybody else's responsibility, that's what I was.
Yeah, and there is a property, it's East South Street that goes back to the wait, I'm sorry, it's northeast. What's the road that the post office is on? This is totally blanking me right now.
East.
Okay,
I think it's east.
Northeast Street. There's so many directional streets. Okay, Northeast Street. There is a big chunk of sidewalk that's just straight up missing. There's sidewalk that goes next to the building, and then it's just asphalt, and then the sidewalk picks up right in front of the post office and continues. So that's one that I think that is something that we definitely need to look at in terms of ownership and responsibility and things like that, Forrest. Yes. So that will be something that we look at. And that's one of those sections that, it really makes you kind of scratch your head to wonder, like, what happened there.
Well, I can kind of tell you, because I did some of that myself. There's a little piece of sidewalk next to my house, and I went on my own and just put another piece to kind of make it look a little better. And it's by no means is it worthy of our ordinance that we passed as far as width and all the construction and all that stuff. So that's why I was saying there's been a lot of self-help, if that's a good way of putting it,
Yeah.
to try to improve, without, going through any city officials or anything. They're just on their own. And that's what I was getting at. I'm not sure how we're gonna, mingle with the public and some of the businesses if they've got something in place that may need to be done. But I've taken into account what you said about people under, difficult times, pandemic and all that. Yeah, I wouldn't want to force that on people
So
right now.
that'll be a strategy to be determined.
There you go.
Now let's get the cost estimates for these things, and then, let me really try to go after a good grant for this stuff. And maybe I can get a grant to pay for most of it, and then we don't have to bother anybody with it.
Yeah.
That would
Okay.
be the best bet.
The only other thing, taking into consideration, Melissa, I think I mentioned a while back, there's no storm sewers in downtown. If that comes up as an issue, I noticed some of the proposals, they mentioned no drainage. I mean, if there needs to be digging and stuff, maybe that needs to be addressed first. I don't know.
And they will look at those things
Okay.
too. Yes,
Okay.
they will look at those things.
Okay, thanks.
So
I was just gonna say, if I may quick, that, I'm hearing Elaine Middlestetter in the back of my head. We're talking about sidewalks again. You're talking about businesses, and you're talking about the city, having to do some work on its own. So maybe this is just some wild idea, but if it gets to that point where the city's going to have it done, I realize that could be a bid. But in a perfect world, hey, Ernst Concrete, you're going to pour a bunch of sidewalk for the city. Hey, businesses that need it, Ernst is going to be doing it. Would Ernst work with the city? Would it
Yeah.
pay city residents? This is a one-time good deal. Because of all this work, Ernst has said they'll come to your house and they'll do it for $30 a square. I mean, I'll just quit there, but I think there might be some merit in that addresses the downtimes, the people that may not have money, we passed the ordinance, you want to enforce it, but you could really hurt people. So I'll be quiet.
no, that's a very good point. I've seen communities that have done that very thing, so it's doable.
I know this might not be something somebody wants to do, but we have allowed people to assess things on their property taxes because they didn't have the money and they wanted it done. So we worked with them and allowed that.
And that's an option too.
That's an option.
Are we good on sidewalks, crosswalks?
Does this mean that on Monday or at a coming up city council meeting, we'll recommend to the city to the council to authorize the expenditure of funds to do that study?
Yeah, and it'll have to be a part of a supplemental appropriation since we didn't have it budgeted, because I didn't get this proposal until January 13th. So it would be a part of a supplemental appropriation. So you guys are going to recommend that expenditure be authorized, and then I would just fold it into a supplemental time I have to do that.
Okay.
Okay, so now
I hope that doesn't mean another work session.
no, it won't. I promise. I am really going to try to just get everything. Okay, I'm working on all of your things. Let's just keep the ship sailing at this point. Like, no more boat rocking. We're good. I've got my marching orders and I will work on all of it. I promise. I haven't failed you all yet. Okay. So the next thing that we have is the geotechnical study for Little Sugar Creek. And again, you have the proposal included in the packet. And this has also been, disseminated prior to this meeting. So our civil engineer, again, LJB, they received proposals from two geotechnical firms. One of them is Geotechnology, which had previously done some work on Little Sugar Creek Road. They did the one and only boring that we have in the area where it slipped. And that one boring was basically the basis for the very high level proposal that we received to understand what it would take to fix Little Sugar Creek. So in order to refine that, what is being suggested is that we bore all along the road, because we need to understand what's underneath of there. Because the solution that has been recommended to us is to build a concrete reinforcement wall, which will have concrete pillars that go down to bedrock. Those concrete pillars are costly, and depending on how deep the bedrock is going to dictate a lot of that cost. The bedrock is really shallow. That could shave quite a bit off of that high level proposal that we got of what, 6 or 7 million. I can't remember what it was now. If it's very deep, maybe that adds to the cost. So I talked to Dan Hoying, our civil engineer again, about this and trying to make sure that this is what the obvious next step is. And he said, yes. He said, even if you guys decide that you're never going to build a wall, if you have a serious slip, we have to know what's underneath of there anyways to be able to reinforce whatever small section it might be that is compromised, because there's some sort of other event that occurs. So understanding what's underneath of the road is important to have that information no matter what we decide to do. If we do nothing and we just wait and see, we at least have this information, like I said, if there's another event and we need to shore up one section of road. If we decide, we've got this windfall of money that came out of the sky and we want to build this wall along the entire stretch of the road, then we know exactly what we're dealing with and what that's going to cost, because those borings are going to be able to give them a much more solid estimate for the entire fix. So there are 2 proposals in here, and LJB took a look at both of them because this kind of stuff is over my head, needless to say. And they're recommending that we go with Terracon, which is $18,000 for the 10 additional borings. There would be an additional cost of $4,400 if they did traffic control and the city didn't, which that's something that we could handle, because what they're going to have to do is they're going to have to get equipment on one lane, take Little Sugar Creek down to one lane while they're doing the work, and traffic control is going to be needed for that. So it is the lower of the 2 proposals, but on top of that, our engineer felt more comfortable with this company because the other company that had offered up a proposal, they have had some changes within the organization, and our engineer felt more confident with the low bid as an organization as well as the cost. So those were the 2 factors that went into him recommending the Terracon proposal. So again, this is just something I need guidance on, because Little Sugar Creek is a big deal, and it's been kind of that cloud hanging over. What are we going to do? What are we going to do? And this is the logical next step based on the recommendation from our civil engineer, who knows more about this stuff than I do. So
Okay.
turning it over to you guys.
May I?
Sure.
All right. So, Melissa, I really appreciate you sending the proposals themselves. When this first came up, I think you were hoping that, hey, we just do it over email, and I'm really glad you did. I'm not an engineer. I didn't stay at the Holiday Inn Express last night, but I had many years in the government evaluating proposals in different technical areas. And after reading them, I felt also that the Terracon, the one that our LJB recommended, was a better proposal. And I'm comfortable with that one. And I based that on what they were going to do, what they talked about, the methodologies. It seemed more complete and just a better package, not just that it was lower price. So that's my piece. I'm done. I'm looking at TJ at the moment, so I'm waiting for him to leap out of my screen.
No, I just had a question. Do you have any idea what the initial study cost? I should have asked that in advance. I hit you with,
I don't know. I know that they did. So if you actually go down Little Sugar Creek, you'll see a yellow tube in one of the areas that, there was a large patch from the slip in 2018. That slip happened right before I started. I think the slip
Yeah.
was in March and I started in April. There's a yellow tube that there's a lot of overgrowth over that ditch right there, but you can see it if you're really going slow and you look for it. So we had them do a boring there and they installed a sensor,
Okay.
and we paid for 1 or 2, maybe just the baseline reading. But we can pay for, that's still installed, and we can pay for additional readings to understand if there's any movement and how much movement there is at that location. So
yeah.
I know that that was something, it wasn't just a boring, they installed that sensor as well. So I don't believe it was super expensive because what they did was very basic, but I can
Yeah.
check, I can email that back out to all of you guys.
Yeah, I just think for taxpayers, they just want to they would want to understand the hit that we've got so far. And then I would second, I thought the proposal from Terracon was laid out quite well. And if our civil engineer has that understanding from an organizational standpoint, I'm on board. Would Terracon be an eligible vendor for then the fix, the wall? Would both of these firms be competing? No, these are just analysis.
Yeah, so they are geotechnical engineers, so they are a specialty engineer. So all they do is they study the earth that's underneath. So
Okay.
they would not be the ones, they are going to be the ones that just conveys the information that says, this is what's under the ground, this is what you're up against, somebody else
Mhm.
design it. So that would be a civil engineer would do the design, kind of like what happened with North Bellevue. But these people would not come up with the recommendation. They just provide the information to tell us what we're up against.
Okay. And I'm sorry, I'm looking through it real quick. How long did they think this study would take? Where was it at?
Shoot, I don't know off the top of my head. There was a
Schedule? I'm looking at it.
well, that was construction. That's just construction. They're talking about it should not take them long to do this. They're only
Okay.
doing 10 borings. If it took them more than a day or two, I would be surprised. But then again, no, I don't know specifically, but it should not take them that long to do this.
Okay. Yeah, I think it looks good. I don't have any objections.
Forrest?
I don't have any objections either. I just have a question. Didn't we invite Sugar Creek Township to follow along with their problem too on the same thing? Not that it would share cost or anything. I didn't know, because they've got an issue too down there, don't they?
Further up.
Just past the Highview Terrace entrance, don't they have some issues?
Uh,
Seemed like it was mentioned. I'm not sure.
it's not as steep, like the creek isn't as wide and the hill isn't as steep on the east side. There's much more flat land between
Okay.
the roadway and the creek. So my knee jerk, very rudimentary answer to that based off of my own knowledge would be, I don't think so, but there's just such a gap because, we've got our problem area, and then we've got McGee Park,
Right.
and we've got the old Kiter House, and then we've got Highview Terrace. So there's quite a bit of buffer in between our problem and the Sugar Creek Township line.
Yeah. I was just thinking of continuity of the road, if they're okay with what they got, basically, do they have a problem? That's the only question I got. But I think what we're doing is good. Go ahead, Dave.
Well, sorry, I'm trying to catch it. It was an understanding. Melissa, you just ran through like a list of properties or people, and I didn't catch it all. you mind, where are we? And I guess these are, I mean, people you know or properties in that area?
Yeah, so if you go down Little Sugar Creek, there from the time you turn off of Franklin, it's all curves and guardrail.
Okay,
Okay,
correct.
until you get to McGee Park.
Okay,
Then, the creek juts off quite a bit to the east, and you've got a lot of land that goes between the road and the creek.
okay,
So there's a lot more space there versus the creek coming up and cutting right up against the road like it does in our problem area.
okay, right, okay,
And then there's just a number of other properties, because that creek is so far to the east of the road at that point that it's not the same issue as our area that we're looking at.
got it. And just if I may, the other night at council, I think we were joking about Emma May, but
Edna May,
who?
Edna May Kiter.
Edna May, okay. But that's the house, the two little red outbuildings, and she's given that to the park. So now all that area will be park. And then I follow you that, again, the road issues there, we don't have the creek so close to it. So, okay, thank you.
Yep, the creek just shoots really far east and it doesn't come back up close to the road for quite a while,
Yeah.
up into the township at that point. And then the creek really narrows down there too. It's really wide down in our area.
Okay.
Melissa, we discussed the gate last council meeting and they mentioned flooding as
Mhm.
part of the reason. Is that something that could be noted to fix maybe?
So
Not that it needs, I mean, it doesn't
So
seem,
what's really interesting about that is when the culvert blew out on North Bellevue, Ryan and I drove down and checked the culvert together that goes underneath of Little Sugar Creek right there at Highview Terrace and Edna May's place right there. And it did not rise the way that it wasn't even plugged. It was wild. So there was enough force to blow out those culverts in that roadway, and just downstream where it's a much smaller culvert, it was unobstructed and it wasn't flooded. It was really wild. So I don't really know how to answer that for us because that goes, it's just much farther. I feel like that would be treated as a separate issue, honestly.
okay,
But it was really wild. I mean, I literally got in the truck and drove down there and looked with Ryan, and you could tell where it really rose up the banks, but it did not clog and create a problem as it did at North Bellevue. Clearly there was a lot more force and velocity up there. I don't know where all that water went, but it must have went out. So
I don't know, with that study they did when they built that culvert, they did a
hydraulic
Water-
study.
hydraulic study. Would that, I don't know if that would mention it or not. The other thing, floodplain, I don't know. I'm
It would.
ignorant of that stuff, but
I mean, if there's a place for the water, that's why floodplain is so important, is because if there's
Yeah.
a place for the water to go, it's going to go there. If you take that
Right.
away, then it's just going to pick up velocity and find somewhere to go.
sure.
So I feel like that, the water found somewhere to go so that it didn't create a bigger problem down at Little Sugar Creek.
Okay,
So everyone is comfortable with moving forward with Terracon. So
yes,
that would be another
Yep.
recommendation on Monday for the, I can't remember which committee we are on right now, for the service committee to make towards council probably during their reporting out. And then this would be another expenditure that I would fold into the budget.
And if,
Okay.
if I may, I guess the thought hits me, the issue or the last big issue we had with Little Sugar Creek seems to me to be pre-COVID, pre-March 20. Yeah, what year are we in? But I guess the point I want to make is I would love to get this approved and going because we know the problem isn't going, it's not getting any better. We don't know what's going on. And now saying that, we were looking at this well before the start of COVID. We had the presentation by that river, the rock natural moving people. And I guess I don't think that Little Sugar Creek's going to fall off tomorrow, but delays, it's already been delayed. We ought to get on it. Sorry, today I just seem to be using way too many words, so.
I agree. We need to really work towards this. And we were really distracted when the North Bellevue thing happened too. And
That's
Yeah.
right.
it seemed to be okay. So, it kind of got tabled, but it really shouldn't be tabled much longer. So I'm
Yeah.
glad that we're moving forward and we'll have an understanding now of what we're up against.
I think
Okay.
there's been council meetings where, and workshops that we've discussed that this is probably one of the most important problem areas that we have for the citizens, and traffic and safety and everything.
Yep.
Okay. Feel good about it.
Okay.
Chance to discuss it. So Forrest, you are tasked with recommending moving ahead with the two proposals, and I can send you a quick email with the blurb if you would prefer. That way
Sure.
you've got it
I would
ready for
appreciate
Monday. Okay, I'll do that.
Oh,
I'll send you a
I'll
very
just ask,
short blurb.
everybody's in agreement for those two proposals?
Yeah.
Okay,
I can't think of any reason why not to.
I can't either, so.
Great.
And TJ and
Yes.
Forrest, I will quickly, I talked to Melissa earlier today, but so you know, I'm traveling on military orders next week. And I just don't even want to try to sync up from a different time zone with y'all. So I've already asked the mayor to excuse me. But certainly, Forrest, when you talk about this, it's unanimous. I'm there with you in spirit. And if I can't sleep, I'll go to the YouTube site and see how y'all look on video.
Well, and
Oh,
I
go
think,
ahead.
well, I just said, if you're traveling on military orders, I think you need to make a recommendation that the city needs to adopt defense travel system protocols for doing
Okay.
business travel.
Well, okay. I want our city
It's horrible.
to succeed, buddy. Yeah, I'm with you. Yeah. Oh
It's-
my golly. Oh,
It's torture.
yes, it is.
And just when you think you got it figured out, they add a new hoop to jump through.
Yes, they do. Why?
I remember those days.
Oh,
I actually put in why you're traveling alone. Why do you think you deserve why do you think you should be authorized a mid-size car? And I said, because I'm old and I don't want to be killed. You sent me to Texas and put me in an Aveo. I said, I'm looking up all the time. We'll just quit with that. Yeah. ETS is interesting.
yeah. It's brutal. All right.
Okay, well, thank you guys. Forrest, do you want to formally adjourn the service committee meeting?
Sure. I just want to make one quick note that address Dave. These will have minutes, official minutes, and so our conversation will be,
Oh,
Super.
what's the term? Real or official?
Okay.
Official.
Super.
That's
And
Don't
may
be too
I-
hard. Though I haven't taken minutes in a while. I'm a little rusty.
keep them short and sweet.
Real quickly, while we're on, Melissa, I thought I heard you say at the beginning that we can chat about a number of topics.
Yeah,
Sure.
So I just say, I saw today another for sale sign at the property behind me, a different realtor, a different size. So you said just, they're still asking the same price. So just interesting to see. And I don't want to, like go back and second guess. I saw the email that said we had canceled the Sugar Maple Festival.
well, we didn't. There's a committee that does that.
Sorry, the Sugar Maple Festival had been canceled. So
Yes.
it's up to that committee. I thought I saw the governor had open festivals.
Well, the formal guidance hasn't come down. It's
Yeah,
forthcoming. So, yeah.
But
I
what
know.
I'm hearing you say, not our call, there's a committee. And so I was just wondering because that timing was close. I know it had to be a hard call. And then the minute you make a decision, oh, gee, this big thing changed maybe. So just,
I actually talked to one of the organizers on Saturday. I ran into her and she was like, can you believe it? And I was like, that's how it works all the time. So yeah, the actual guidance hasn't come down yet formally. And I mean, it's so close, it's like, what do? You hate to, it's a bad spot to be in, but it's a committee of
I appreciate it.
volunteers.
You've
Yep.
educated me, and that's what I needed.
I didn't
Uh,
want to make that call.
Quick topic on AES, they're advertising, they're changing the name from DPNL to AES, which we know that they've owned it for 5 or 6 years. They seem like they're willing to be real nice. Is there anything that we can ask for from them? Do we need to
I
ask
mean, I can
something?
ask them to bury electric lines and do all of those things. I mean, it can't hurt to ask, right?
That
Can
would
you
be
ask
great.
if we can we hang our snowflakes?
Now that is, that's now, so that they still own the subsidy of Miami Valley Lighting, but our RFP, we're gonna get our own street lights.
Yeah.
And we are gonna put up whatever we want to because we will own them. So we are taking that matter into our own hands.
There you go.
All right.
Anybody have anything else?
Thank
We're
you
good.
both.
Great. Thanks, guys.
All right. Good night.
Take care and
Right.
have a great night. Enjoy.
Thanks. Safe travels.
Thanks.
Thank you.